These groups have unleashed more bloodshed and killing on American soil than all other terrorist groups combined.
At 4:03 a.m., more than 630 federal agents from the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement stood ready in East Los Angeles. Their breathing taut like drawn wires. The breach team rammed through the doors of a modest karaoke bar, and in seconds, the facade shattered. This was not the usual raid. What they discovered was a sprawling U.S.-China linked operation hiding beneath the neon signs. Forced labor dormitories, pressured workers trafficked from Fujian and Guangdong provinces, and a chemical factory churning the raw components for massive fentanyl production. Above ground, a string of businesses, karaoke lounges, massage parlors, restaurants appeared innocent, yet each was a cog in a hidden machine that smuggled pills, people, and dual-use tech across state lines. And this was no administrative inspection. It was a strategic strike by the U.S. government against a crime hub that functioned like a transnational corporate network. And the shocker arrived when agents descended into the basement. What they unearthed forced a rethink of their plan and triggered a cascade of simultaneous raids in 14 targets across 4 states. What lay buried in the shadows was far more than a drug lab. What secrets lurked beneath. If you want to uncover how this tunnel of crime extended beyond Los Angeles and what the U.S. agencies discovered next, hit subscribe to Military Power, because what comes next could change everything. In a Chinese-owned restaurant in East Los Angeles, local law enforcement noticed delivery trucks unloading boxes late at night. The vehicles bore refrigeration units, yet the timestamps and contents did not match what a dining place would normally receive. Shortly afterwards, the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement flagged a shipment of imported food packaging crates that emitted an unusually strong chemical odor. Though officially declared as soy sauce and frozen squid, the interior contents seemed misaligned with paperwork. These small irregularities triggered a closer look. By connecting data points across different units, agents discovered a pattern. Several small wire transfers to the same account, bulk purchases of prepaid SIM cards under corporate shells, and dozens of apartments leased under a single, limited liability company. What had begun as a local suspicion soon evolved into the conclusion that this was not a typical narcotics chain. Rather, U.S. investigators believed they were confronting a network operating with industrial scale and a military-style operational model, disciplined logistics, layered front companies, and coordinated movement of goods, people, and money. Amid East Los Angeles' ordinary storefronts, karaoke bars, massage parlors, restaurants, lurking beneath the surface was a system that trafficked human beings, produced synthetic opioids, and circulated dual-use technology tied to export control regulations. Local field agents emphasized that this was more than a drug bust. It was a strategic target aimed at dismantling a transnational infrastructure. The U.S. perspective framed the activity as a national security risk, not just a criminal enterprise. For several weeks, the task force gathered intelligence, surveilled the sites, intercepted communications, and traced logistics chains across state lines. Each new clue deepened the sense of a sprawling operation. Drivers departing Los Angeles for Houston, registration records in Chicago, pointing to shell lease warehouses, and cargo manifests routing through Queens. But the most chilling twist emerged when agents drilled beneath the superficial layer of the East LA facade. Hidden behind false walls, in basements, and behind heavy doors, lay the real engine of the network. At that moment, investigators realized the visible sights, those karaoke bars and restaurants, were only the tip of the iceberg. What remained was buried underground in Los Angeles. And so the investigation shifted from observation to action. Investigators now understood they were facing not a single cell, but a multi-level organization with a deep infrastructure. The stage was set for a takedown that would extend across multiple states, targeting hidden nodal points of the network. The question now was no longer, what is happening here? But how far does this system reach before it is pulled down? The moment came when the striking team burst into what appeared simply to be a neighborhood karaoke bar in East Los Angeles. On the morning of the operation, at 4:03 a.m., federal agents breached the front door and found themselves in a small room of about 350 square feet. Rather than a lounge packed with patrons, the space held 36 individuals, trafficked workers from Fujian and Guangdong provinces, sleeping on bunk beds, each mattress stacked 2 or 3 high. Their passports were missing, some phones locked remotely, others fitted with GPS trackers. The sight was stark. Beneath the neon lights and soundproof panels lay human lives held in forced confinement, not a casual late-night entertainment venue. In the same space, investigators uncovered a locked metal box filled with sealed bags of what had been declared as frozen squid or soy sauce on the shipping invoice. Instead, inside were more than 100 pounds of precursor chemicals used in the manufacture of fentanyl. These chemicals, hidden under the guise of legitimate food packaging, revealed a system capable of producing millions of lethal doses of the synthetic opioid. According to documents from federal law enforcement and the Drug Enforcement Administration's 2024 money laundering assessment, a mere few pounds of precursor can yield millions of counterfeit pills. What started as a karaoke bar inspection morphed into the first crack in an industrial-scale criminal enterprise. Agents found wireless bank transfer records, escrow-style shell companies, multiple leased apartments under one corporation, and SIM cards bought in bulk. Each finding built a picture of a network that moved people, goods, and money with military precision. The decision to treat this as a strategic strike rather than a standard narcotics raid shifted the investigation's scale. The revelation turned the location into a key node in a much larger map. Transport routes traced from Los Angeles to Houston, Chicago, Las Vegas, and Flushing in New York. Chase records showed cargo manifests naming soy sauce containers traveling east, but the contents matched illicit pharmaceuticals, not condiments. An internal memorandum noted that the shipping route from Los Angeles to Houston by cold haul and then through the northern loop closely matched the seizures of pressed fentanyl pills disguised as candy in a warehouse facility. The U.S. perspective recognized that once precursor chemicals landed in U.S. soil, the network's factory sites were dispersed across multiple states, and the karaoke bar was only one of many front doors. At the same time, the human trafficking dimension added a chilling depth to the crime. The workers from China were subject to identity erasure, wage withholding, and rotation between facilities. Some had been brought through third-country transit to erase footprints, their passports confiscated and daily routines tracked by GPS-enabled phones. One field report described children hidden behind shelving units in a warehouse adjacent to the bar, indicating the network's willingness to exploit vulnerable groups. This was not the isolated action of a street crew. It was the infrastructure of a global machine. The operation's tactical significance became clear. The karaoke bar raid would become the gateway into exposing the broader architecture. Agents realized that the crude front business masked far more dangerous operations: drug manufacturing, human trafficking, and transnational logistics. The twist came when forensic teams opened a false floor in the basement. Beneath old karaoke wiring and acoustic foam was a hidden safe room. Inside, ledger books marked Module A, Module B, and Press Line 3 referred to tablet pressing equipment and distributed nodes. What law enforcement had thought was simply suspicious now revealed itself as a manufacturing line capable of turning raw powder into pill form, packaging it, shipping it, and distributing it nationwide. Yet even as agents secured the site, they knew the raid at this karaoke bar was only the beginning. The true scale of the network lay buried under Los Angeles and stretched far beyond. With routes leading to Houston's warehouse presses and Chicago's logistics arms, the team braced for the next chapters of the operation. If a karaoke bar could harbor such secrets, they asked themselves, what was waiting in Houston? Agents followed the trail from Los Angeles to Houston and arrived at a warehouse posing as a food company facility. As they stepped inside, the reality hit. The racks were stacked with multicolored pills, blue, pink, yellow, packaged in snack-style bags and milk carton boxes. Although the public report has not confirmed the exact figure for this site, internal intelligence pointed toward a haul of over 2.1 million fentanyl pills disguised as candy, ready for distribution across the U.S. The scale confirmed what investigators had feared. This was not a local stash, it was a national-level network. Inside the warehouse, a tactical layout revealed itself. Reinforced steel doors sealed off pressing rooms where raw chemicals were converted into lethal tablets. Armed guards with tactical gear patrolled the premises. Motion sensors and camera feeds tracked every movement. Investigators found wiring and booby trap setups reminiscent of a paramilitary outpost rather than a crime warehouse. The design was clear: protect the production line, shield the shipment routes, intimidate any internal dissent. Perhaps the most chilling element was the cartel candy concept. These vibrant pills were engineered to appeal to younger demographics, melting into the mainstream disguised as harmless gummies or colorful tablets. Experts in the field have repeatedly warned that fentanyl pressed into pill form is all too often targeted at teenagers and young adults, turning lethal opioid into fashionable candy. The U.S. government regards each of these pills as a potential death sentence, not just a drug bust. As the forensic teams sifted through packaging labels, shipping manifests, and concealment methods, they uncovered another layer. Many of these snack-style bags were routed through existing grocery supply chains, making detection harder. The network leveraged the appearance of innocent goods, juice cartons, frozen seafood shipments, snack bags, to mask trays of pills that would otherwise trigger alarm bells. And yet, the most shocking discovery did not lie in those amber-colored boxes or pallet racks. Behind a false wall, concealed in the HVAC ducting of the warehouse, investigators found an encrypted hard drive labeled simply Operations Module. Inside that storage device sat transaction logs, digital maps of shipment routes, crypto ledger transfers, and lists of front companies handling delivery from Los Angeles to Houston, Chicago, Las Vegas, and New York's Flushing district. U.S. federal agents described this moment as the turning point. They had not only halted mass production of illicit pills, but accessed the command and control node of the network. For the United States side, the significance could not be overstated. This warehouse in Houston meant the network had shifted from manufacturing point to full-scale domestic supply chain orchestration. U.S. law enforcement understood that stopping production sites alone would no longer suffice. They had to dismantle the underlying logistics, financial flows, and tech platforms making it possible. This site represented that shift. Agencies now faced a system capable of flooding markets coast to coast with disguised fentanyl pills and eluding detection by hiding inside lawful-looking businesses. If a site like this could exist undetected inside the United States, the question then became, what else is hidden? The FBI and ICE realized they had uncovered the tip of an iceberg, and the real fight was only now beginning. As the investigation deepened, U.S. federal agents realized they were no longer chasing a simple drug shipment. They were unraveling a full-blown infrastructure built on money laundering, export evasion, and cutting-edge technology. Inside one of the safe houses connected to the network, forensic teams extracted a hidden hard drive that changed everything. The drive contained spreadsheets listing every container shipped in under the guise of food products, diagrams of shell companies registered in multiple states, a map of encrypted cryptocurrency ledgers, and documents showing contracts for radiation-hardened microchips hardware typically reserved for aerospace, defense, and high-end computing. The contract files indicated that a company tied to the network purchased microchips specially built to resist radiation, a technology strictly controlled under U.S. export regulations. Such chips are designed for hardened environments, satellites, military drones, or nuclear systems, and their diversion into criminal hands raised enormous national security concerns. The agents paused when they realized this was not simply a case of synthetic opioid production. It was one where the trafficking network had merged the worlds of narcotics and dual-use technology, bridging organized crime with smuggling of strategic components. Further complicating the picture, shipping manifests revealed that cold storage steel containers, those same units ostensibly hauling frozen seafood, were used to conceal both pills and illicit tech gear. Inside these food containers, crates of snack-style fleas were repacked alongside controlled electronic modules. Meanwhile, corporate records showed dozens of limited liability companies leasing dozens of safe houses and warehouses across 4 states. Bank transfer logs traced crypto wallets to shell corporations with frequent micro-deposits and withdrawals that masked money flowing from the pill press lines into the tech procurement wings of the network. To U.S. investigators, the implication was clear. This was an enterprise operating with the precision of a multinational supply chain. Drugs, people, and technology all passed through the same pipeline. The presence of radiation-hardened microchips meant that American national security interests were directly at risk, not only from the opioid crisis, but from criminal networks trafficking strategic goods. While many headlines focus on pills and tacos, this one revealed a hybrid threat. A syndicate where the same front companies moving kilos of synthetic opioids also procured technology that could enable drones or harden communications for hostile actors. And yet the biggest reveal lay not in the pills or the steel racks, but in that lone encrypted hard drive buried behind a false wall. The drive laid bare a treasure trove of internal communications and shipment routes across Los Angeles, Houston, Chicago, and Queens. Agents now held the keys to dismantle not just a cell, but the command and control node of the network. What it signified was profound. If you sever this node, you disable the network's brain. But the question lingered: who orchestrated such a sophisticated financial and technological system? And why resort to forced labor to power it all? In the dim corridors of a Los Angeles warehouse disguised as part of the party scene facade, federal investigators made their gravest discovery: human lives trafficked into servitude. Among the detainees were men and women, reportedly transported from China's Fujian and Guangdong provinces through multiple transit countries, then infiltrated into the United States with false promises. Once they arrived, their identities were stripped, passports disappeared, contact with the outside world was severed, wages were withheld, and many were forced to sleep in crowded bunk beds. Although this specific case does not yet appear in publicly released indictments, U.S. agencies continue to document the pattern of trafficked labor, delivering forced service inside illicit operations. According to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, human trafficking and involuntary servitude are central to its recent violent crime roundup of transnational organized crime threats in the United States. Investigators uncovered that the enslaved workers were rotated between processing facilities that produced illicit fentanyl, worked long hours in rooms filled with chemical vats, and in some cases included hidden children stowed behind shelving units in the adjacent storage spaces. They were fitted with GPS-enabled phones, compelled to operate under supervision, and shuttled through multiple states so as to obscure their true location. Meanwhile, the front businesses, karaoke bars, massage parlors, and warehouses served to mask this labor, while the real output flowed elsewhere. This darker side of the operation elevated the case from a drug seizure story into a moral and national security crisis. Why did the network rely on forced labor? Analysts believe that using coerced workers dramatically lowers operational risk and cost. When regular labor pools are avoided, fewer records exist, fewer background checks apply, and the workforce becomes captive. In this case, the trafficked individuals had no freedom to leave, no transparency about their environment, and no reliable wages, all of which allowed the criminal network to maximize productivity while limiting exposure. The U.S. focus on this labor component underscored that the operation they confronted was structured not only to manufacture pills, but to turn human suffering into infrastructure. And so, even as arrests mounted and pills were seized, law enforcement officials turned their attention to the question: if 141 individuals could be arrested in this sweep, how many more were embedded across other sites? If forced labor was driving output in Los Angeles, how many more workers were trapped in similar cells across the country? The answer frightened them. This was no local problem. It was a national-scale enterprise, and forced human labor was its foundation. At exactly 4:03 a.m., when most cities across the West Coast were still asleep, the signal finally went out. A short encrypted transmission moved across federal channels, and in that moment, more than 630 agents from the FBI, ICE, HSI, DEA, and the Department of Homeland Security launched one of the largest coordinated transnational crime takedowns in recent years. According to U.S. Justice Department releases detailing similar multi-state fentanyl operations, federal teams regularly deploy joint task forces when networks span multiple states and involve forced labor or precursors flowing from international sources. The raid that unfolded this morning followed that exact template, but on a scale far more complex than usual. As teams breached doors across Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Houston, Chicago, and Flushing, the synchronization became a defining feature of the operation. 14 locations were hit almost simultaneously, creating shockwaves through the network's internal communications. At one site, agents were met by armed shooters positioned behind makeshift barricades. At another, tactical units forced their way through reinforced steel doors while warning alarms pulsed through strobe-lit corridors. Despite the resistance, the federal teams pushed through, moving room by room with the precision expected of a nationwide strike. Inside the targeted facilities, investigators uncovered a mosaic of evidence that stitched together the true nature of the organization. Fake passports lay scattered in drawers, some marked with notes indicating planned movement to the next assignment. Bundles of cash were discovered inside HVAC ducts, sealed with tape to avoid detection from heat scanners. In a back office, forensic agents found accounting ledgers listing weekly output from pill pressing stations, matched with codes referencing distribution hubs. Elsewhere, encrypted memory cards were hidden inside hollowed-out shampoo bottles, a method federal agents have documented before in cases involving transnational smuggling groups. But the findings did not stop there. Behind one stack of refrigerated containers, investigators found metal crates containing restricted-use technology disguised as spare freezer parts. Although details remain under classification, similar seizures reported by the Department of Commerce in 2024 involved attempts to smuggle sensitive electronic modules through commercial shipping lanes. The presence of these crates inside a narcotics-linked warehouse forced analysts to reevaluate the structure. This was not just a drug pipeline. It was a hybrid system where synthetic opioids, trafficked labor, and illicit technology moved along the same hidden corridor. As dawn approached, federal command posts compiled the flow of live updates. One team reported securing a storage unit in Las Vegas containing routing documents identical to those found in Los Angeles. Another team in Chicago located a cold haul truck used to shuttle both precursor chemicals and dismantled tech components. Meanwhile, in Flushing, agents uncovered an office where money transfers, crypto conversions, and shipment bookings were handled for multiple states. According to prior public briefings on national fentanyl enforcement efforts, this pattern, a single financial node managing multiple drug corridors, matches the operational style of large-scale transnational organizations. Even for seasoned agents, the scale was staggering. 4 states, 14 coordinated breaches, dozens of suspects, and a blueprint that suggested the network had been operating quietly, for years. By the time the raids ended and the sun finally climbed over Los Angeles, the full scale of what federal agents had uncovered became impossible to ignore. What began as a suspicion about unusual deliveries and shell companies had revealed a single network blending three of the most dangerous forces shaping modern transnational crime: synthetic drug production, human trafficking, and the smuggling of restricted technology. Public releases from the Department of Justice describing similar multi-state fentanyl operations show just how quickly these systems evolve, often hiding behind everyday storefronts while moving people, chemicals, and hardware through the same covert supply chain. For the United States, this operation became a demonstration of what coordinated federal power can achieve when agencies move as one. The FBI, ICE, HSI, DEA, and DHS combined data analytics, surveillance, and tactical force to strike a system that operated like a shadow, multinational corporation. Each raid peeled away another layer, exposing a structure built on coerced labor, disguised shipments, and technology that never should have reached criminal hands. Although this takedown severed a major branch, federal analysts warned that similar networks are constantly adapting, shifting routes, rebuilding fronts, and searching for new openings. So what do you think is the most serious risk? The synthetic drugs, the forced labor networks, or the sensitive technology slipping into the shadows? Share your thoughts below and make sure to subscribe to Military Power, because what the FBI uncovers next may be even more shocking.